All right, welcome back to the Central Valley Buzz, everybody. I'm your host, Chuck Leonard. William, let's bring in our next guest, Mr. Michael Bogart. Hello, sir.
Hi, Chuck.
How's it going? Good to see you.
Good to see
What's
you
happening?
Too. Well, you know, the last few weeks I've been talking about the demographic slide in Christian population share in North America.
Right.
That seems like pretty gloomy news. So I thought what I would do this time is talk about the gains in other parts of the world.
Oh, are they gaining?
Yes.
Are these parts of the world that don't have the internet?
You know, in some ways, there is some correlation there, as a matter of fact.
How'd I know that?
Yeah. But we're talking about, like, in developing world countries, you know, Christian population share has shot up in the last 20 years or so, 10 years even. Evangelical Christianity is the fastest growing religious bloc in the world.
So, hold on. So the Christians like yourself go to these other countries where they're starving, they're dying from a disease, and they say, God's the way. Things start to change. Mm-hmm. They bring their kids up that way, and now you're seeing a big increase?
Well, obviously social work and, you know, community improvement things have made a big difference, and I think that's a good thing. But I think a lot of times people are looking for something different than what's been going on for centuries and centuries. And so what you see in Brazil is a rapid, you know, upturn.
Right.
South Korea, even, you know, sub-Saharan Africa, you see, you know, massive mushrooming of Christian groups growing. And
are these people that need hope?
Well, I think so. And I think that's...
Is that the angle we're taking?
That's the strong suit of Christianity, I think, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, we're supposed to be the hope people. And I think in the developing world, in the North American world, and Europe, we stopped talking about hope a long time ago, and people kind of given up on it. Mm-hmm. But really, I think if you go back to the original, it's the religion of hope in many ways. And that's why when it is perceived as such in these places where really it is the ticket, then I think that people respond to that.
Well, I think you have a society over here of people that want instant gratification.
Correct.
They want to pray right now and be healthy tomorrow. They want to pray right now and be rich tomorrow.
That's true.
It doesn't happen, does it?
Well, you know, and
faith isn't just a right now thing.
No, and I think there's a good reason for some of that, is because I think character development goes along with the faith process. I mean, if you stay immature and get your answers to prayer, what good is that, you know? Mm-hmm. That there's a certain growth that happens in patience and taking the steps necessary, and then eventually seeing what you want come about. And I think, you know, people in the developing world understand some of that. They're a lot more patient. They're a lot more take the long view about things than really we are in North America. At least that's been my experience.
And the true Christian will understand when their necessary prayers aren't answered.
Sometimes, you know, as a Christian, I believe sometimes God says no.
Okay, so you prayed for something that didn't come around, didn't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. But as a Christian, you look at it as maybe I was praying for the wrong thing and God's going to put me on the right track.
Well, you know, there's an old country song that says, "Thank God for unanswered prayers." Mm-hmm. I think there's some truth to that. Country music doesn't always have truth, but I think that one does. I mean, as a father, you just talked about fatherhood. There are some things your kids ask for that you have to say, no.
Right.
It's not in your best interest as far as I'm concerned. And I think that in some ways, I mean, it's no accident that the New Testament pictures God as Father, and he acts like that sometimes when he says, I don't think this is in your best interest. Mm-hmm. So you don't get what you ask for. Sometimes you look back and go, good, I'm glad I didn't.
Right.
But it takes some hindsight sometimes to see that, yeah. So, but I just wanted to bring some kind of a positive side to all the negative stuff I've been talking about, because really, in many parts of the world, Christianity is growing rapidly, which, at least to some people like myself, is seen as a good thing. Mm-hmm. China, you know, it's interesting, Chuck. In 1950, the Communist Chinese took over, you know, in China. They rounded up, in the next few years, they rounded up most of the Christian leaders, threw them in jail, cut some of their tongues out, you know, some pretty nasty things. And the Christian church, which at the time in 1950, after 100 years of missionary work from 1850 and 1950, about 1 million Chinese Christians. Since 1950, there's probably 60 million. So the answer is round up all the pastors and throw them in jail and then see what happens. Because I think
what's with such a large uptick?
Well, I think instead of relying on your leaders to be the Christians, the average Christian has to kick in and actually put up or shut up. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's actually what happened in China. You see this massive growth once the church was forced underground and the leaders were all kind of corralled. It's amazing.
So that they question religion a different way.
They do.
Right?
They do. And the Chinese, I predict, and of course I'm no great expert, but I predict that the Chinese church is going to exert a massive influence in the 21st century.
Really?
More massive perhaps than North American Christianity.
Because they're normally what? Religion?
Taoism, Buddhism, of course in communist
What's the
China.
largest one over there?
I would say, well, Taoism's pervasive. It's the original Chinese religion. Buddhism's pretty widespread, but of course in communist China, atheism has also been more recently kind of the official party line.
The younger crowd, like here?
Well, somewhat the Communist Party affiliated crowd. Mm-hmm. But you know, as in always, folk religion is always under the surface, and so you see all kinds of stuff going on.
Folk religion? You mean like the religion that's popular right now?
Folk religion is what people do at home privately, no matter what they do officially. Mm-hmm. So you've got folk Catholicism, folk Protestantism, folk Islam. You know, no matter what the official religion says, it's what people are actually doing.
Undercover.
Right. Well, and a good example of that would be the Christmas tree. That's folk Protestantism. I mean, Christmas trees have nothing to do with the birth of Jesus. It's just that we've always done that, even into our pagan past,
right,
as Europeans. And so, you know, folk Catholicism in Mexico is, you know, like the Day of the Dead. It has nothing to do with Catholicism, but they still do it as part of their past.
Well, it's nicer than laying around in a manger. Right.
Well, it's all part of the fun, I guess.
Now, you brought your book with you, the 45-Minute Bible.
I did.
How's
yes.
it selling?
It's really good. People seem to like a brief overview, and of course we've talked about this many times, that people would rather read a short book like this that gives an overview sometimes than the actual book itself. And I will go on record as saying I don't mean this as a substitute for the real thing, but if you're looking for a gateway into the Bible, to understanding it and making sense out of it, I think this is a really good beginning point.
Would this be something you could give to, I don't know, a young teenager to get them involved?
I think so. I mean, it's written on about a high school level. That's the level I aimed at. I know my college students like it at West Hills. Sometimes they've read it. You know, obviously church people seem to get into it.
What kind of questions do you get from your students after they read that book?
Well, they want to know more. Obviously, they focus on, you know, some of the things they've heard in class from some professors and so on about the Bible having contradictions. And of course, we've talked about that before.
What's the biggest thing they want to know? I bet it's bringing someone back to life.
Actually, the questions I get,
or the wine. It's either one of the two.
It's whether the Bible has any relevance for the 21st century. That's what people really want to know. They want to know if this book, written in ancient times, has any relevance for the times we have today.
And what's your answer, Mike?
And the answer is human nature hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
Technology has changed. Human nature is the same, and it is just as relevant today as it's ever been.
There's good people and bad people.
And you find them in the Bible.
That's right. And Michael Bogart, always good to see you.
Yep.
If you'd like to pick up one of his books or videos, go to mindcuisine.com. He's got some other great videos on there, understanding Islam, understanding Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, all great videos and books. Always good to have you on, Mike. Thanks a lot for being a supporter.
Pleasure,
of Buzz.
Chuck. Yep.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Stick around.